And now it is time for the Snack Boy from Laurel, Maryland.
Welcome to Snackboy. Thank you, Tom. It's 3:15, and it's time for a snack. Hey, did you have a religious fanatic mother who wouldn't let you watch horror movies? And this is the snack for you. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with horror movies. Obsessed. I had to smuggle Fangoria into the house. And for those of you who don't know, Fangoria is a kick-butt horror movie magazine that just drips with all the best gore from all the best horror movies. And as a kid, in the 4th grade, I met this kid, Charles Brown, and he was a master storyteller. And he used to spin the most incredible horror stories. I remember every time we had a field trip, I would try to sit by him on the bus, and he would be like, I got a scary story to tell you. And he got me into the horror movies. He would tell me about Prom Night and Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, no less, and Phantasm 2 and Aliens. And I was just hungry for more horror. But guess who was not so hungry for horror? It was my mother. The lovely, the divine, the blessed Susan Len Crummett. Well, I'm sure I'm not the only one. I don't think it's too weird to have a mother who doesn't think it's the best idea for her kid to see horror movies, but I wanted it so bad that I want to see Jason and Freddy Krueger and the tall man from Phantasm and his wicked little balls with all those little sharp things that fly into your forehead and suck all the blood out of them. But Sue had a better idea. I remember once I bought this book, and it was called, like, The Best of Horror, and it had all the best pictures of all the best horror movies, and my mom saw it, and she said, Terry, I think this is a really good, what's the word, when incentive. This is really good incentive for you to get better grades this semester, so I'm going to keep this book locked in my bedroom, Terry, and when you get all A's and B's, guess what? You can look through this book. So she locked it away, and I just decided I'm going to get rebellious. And I said, Mom, I want to rent a horror movie. I want to rent Friday the 13th Part 2, and I think you should let me. And she said, Terry, you know who makes the horror movies. And I said, who? She says, Beelzebub, the hoary beast of the netherworld, the beast of the 2 backs. I said, Mom, Satan does not make horror movies. Directors do. And she says, yes, but Terry, you know how it works. Satan gets in their heads, and people are worldly and sinful. And that's just an excuse for people to show the violence. And the brain, Terry, is like a computer. And I'd say, Mom, what do you mean? She'd say, what goes in comes out. So I'd say, so Mom, you're telling me that if I rent Friday the 13th Part 2, I'm going to become a killer? And she said, it's not funny, Terry. You just might. You never know. Like I said, the brain is like a computer, and the Lord says to dwell on pure thoughts. Well, I didn't want to dwell on pure thoughts. So on my birthday, my best friend, Prashant Saridran, okay, well, he was kind of a nerd, but then again, so was I. Well, Prashant's mother wasn't so uptight. She let us rent Friday the 13th Part 1 and The Fog and The Fun House. They all started with F. So we had this horror festival, and with Prashant's nerdy sister, all of us got together in their house, and we started watching the horror movies. I was in hog heaven, and the next day, my mom picked me up, and I was so scared she would find out. So I told everybody, don't tell my mom what we watched. So she said, did you all have a good time? And I said, yes, let's go, Mom, let's go. And Prashant said, Mrs. Crummett, could you do me a favor? Please, would you do me a favor? And I didn't know what he was going to do. I said, Prashant. And he said, Mrs. Crummett, because I'm only in the 5th grade, I'm far too young to drive. Will you return these movies to the video store for me? And I was in hell. I was in my own personal hell. He handed her the bag of videos, The Fun House, Friday the 13th, and The Fog. And we took him back. And the whole time in the car to the video store, I'm dying. I'm like, oh, please, God, don't let her open the bag. We got to the video store, and the video guy, she hands him the bag. She hasn't looked. I told her it was License to Drive. I told her we'd watched the Corey Haim, Corey Feldman movie, License to Drive, and I was trying to make up a plot. Well, they were trying to drive, and they're not 16. It was it was funny. And the guy at the video store was like, so what did you get this time? And he pulls up Friday the 13th right in front of my mother. And she says, Carrie, what did you do? And I said, I didn't watch it, Mom. I saw License to Drive. And she said, you did not. You saw Friday the 13th. And then he pulled out the Funhouse. And then he pulled out the Fog. Anyway, if you have any stories about your mother finding out that you saw any videos you weren't supposed to see, whether it be an adult film or a horror film or even a movie like Porky's, which is another story, because yes, I also got caught watching Porky's, please write us here at thesync.com because we need to know.